Hello friends, you're with the Lonesome Gamer, and I'm playing Alexander the Great. And it is quite possible that this will be the last video of the series, and it is also possible that this might be a very short video, maybe just a few minutes. On the other hand, there is a chance that Alexander, if he is very lucky, will win the game, and then it would go on for quite a while, I guess. But I'm not sure about that. It's more likely that he will lose. So let's see. The situation is simple. Until now, Alexander managed to take Sardis, to cut the knot, to take Damascus, and that's it. He's got a lot of things to do. He's got to take Memphis, got to go to Alexandria and found that, got to move to Ziva, visit the Oracle. He's got to take Babylon, Susa, Persepolis, Ecbatana. He's got to capture the royal family. He's got to marry one guy there, or one lady. He's got to kill Darius or capture him. And finally, he's got to retake Greece, or Epirus at that time. He's got to kill these Spartans here. So there is a lot to do. And if we see that the war weariness is at 17 and his injury level is at 16, we can understand that it's very hard and very unlikely that he can do that. So let's see. Well, the Macedonian player is next. So he's now gonna move in here, and we've already checked the table. Memphis will surrender automatically. And by the way, I forgot to play a card. Of course, I could play a card. I don't see one here, so we're gonna draw a new one. And so Memphis surrendered. That gives Alexander an advantage when it comes to his mutiny rolls. And I wonder if he can move on. Maybe he can move on right away to Ziva. So wait a second, he moves one space, no, that's 1 point, 2 movement points for demanding the surrender, 3, 4. Yes, so he can actually move here to Ziva. Maybe it's a better idea to move to Alexandria, because again, I don't know. No, I will move to Ziva. Leave a garrison. Shit, I don't have a garrison. Ah, that sucks. I don't have a garrison. So I have to leave some units in Memphis. And, well, I'm gonna leave, I don't know, I'm gonna leave 2 in Memphis. Okay. And now I'm here, and I think simply ending up there is good enough to visit the Oracle. So let's see. Yeah, we need him at the end of an action round in the Ziva. Okay. So okay, he controls now Egypt and he is in Ziva. That means that he might now establish his deity if he plays that Proskinesis card, I guess. But that can be only played after he's great king, so he cannot do that yet. Okay. He does this either by playing the card or by using an entire action round to do so after he has become great king. Okay, so first he must be great king, then he can do this special act. But he controls this, he's been at the oracle, so he wants to found Alexandria in the next turn, and then he can continue his march to the east if there is still time left. Okay, now let's see who comes next. It's the Persians. Okay. So it's an interesting choice now. The Persian player could, at that point, he could decide to announce an administration round that means that then if the Macedonian player, if he rolls a 1 or 2, or if he rolls a 3 to 6, he's got to check if he loses the game. And then on a 1 to 3, he would lose the game. So but Darius could try to regain Damascus, and then there is a good chance his chances are better that he can win, because then on a 1 to 4 the Macedonians would lose. So I'm actually consider doing this. If I move here now, well, there are 3 guys in there. What are the odds that the city will surrender? It's probably not very good. Okay, so we can add 1, 2. What about the fortification? It's a 0 for each ASP inside the city. We got a subtract, so we have a -1 modifier. Do we have anything special here? Nope. What is that? Okay, it would be a -1 modifier to check if the city surrenders. So that's basically impossible, because you need a 6 to make the city surrender. So we had to besiege the city, and on the other hand, I think I want to try it, because it simply is more likely. I mean, Alexander there is no disadvantage for me. I just wait a little bit. Alexander cannot improve his chances while I'm sitting here besieging the city. So I can simply do it. I move in here and start a siege. Okay. And shit, I forgot to play a card, of course. I think I want to play that one. Alexandrian Drunken Binge. When played by the Persian, it earns Alexander 1 injury point. Yeah, but it can be only played if Alexander is Great King, which is not the case yet. So, I got a really good card here. Okay, before I do that, actually I want to play the card before I enter Damascus, and there is a reason for that, because I got a very strong card in my hand. I haven't realized that yet. But that could actually change things quite a bit. I got the Satrap Insubordination. And there I can choose to play the Harpalus Incident. The Persian player may remove the Macedonian garrison of any one Macedonian-controlled treasure city, reduce the treasury to empty, and roll for a Greek revolt. This represents the incident in which Alexander's Babylonian treasurer, Harpalus, absconded with many talents and 6,000 men, ending up in Athens forming a murky sort of rebellion. Okay. Yeah. And that is a real problem now for the Macedonian player. So I'm going to play that. And I'm going to remove this one, Sardis. So that city is no longer under control of the Macedonians. Okay. Now then, instead of besieging that city, what I can do is I now can announce an administration phase. First I can draw a card. Oh, look at that, man. It's the same card again. I wonder if we can play that a second time. Well, I think it could be possible. I mean, there can be more than one satrap insubordinate, I guess. Okay, anyway. Well, it's actually tempting to say, I'm going to wait one turn and then play this card again, and maybe, but there are no garrisons in there, this is a real force with ASP, so I cannot remove that this way, I guess. Okay. Although I'm not sure about that. Because it says here, ASPs may be placed in a space without an army, but ASPs that are not part of an army may not move, attack, or avoid battle. They may retreat. They become de facto garrisons. I mean, logically it makes sense to allow this card also to be played against ASPs. Otherwise you can simply place one ASP in each of these cities and the card doesn't pose a threat anymore. So I guess it should be allowed to do that. Now it's tempting to say, I'll wait for the next turn and play this card simply again. And then Alexander has a massive problem. And I think that's what I want to do. So for now, I will simply move Darius here. Alright, why? Well, basically that might not even be necessary. I could also say, hey, just wait a second. Okay, there is an interesting question. The fact that I remove the garrison here actually doesn't mean that I do control the city now myself. It just means that Alexander doesn't control it anymore. So I guess what I want to do instead is I might consider removing this garrison and then simply taking the city. That's probably a better idea. But this is something I really want to check. Wait a minute. We could also roll for the Greek revolt there. Okay, I think it's not controlled by the province is not controlled by the Persians then, but it is just no longer controlled, or the city is no longer controlled by the Macedonians. So I'm going to remove this one from Damascus. Then I'm going to roll for a revolt. And it says roll for Greek revolt. That is kind of interesting because the guy moves to the Greek home country, right? It was something like that. Yeah, exactly. So I don't roll on the table for this province, but I roll for Greece. And that probably doesn't make a lot of sense because there are already that many people in there that a revolt would not be possible. So I think it's not necessary to roll here. Okay, then again, I can now move with Darius, and I will move 2 spaces, 1, and then I'm going to spend a movement point, and I'm going to force, I'm going to try to gain Damascus, which is, well, it's hard to tell. I mean, they are kind of independent, I guess, at that point. It's not so clear. Do I have to siege it or not? That's a tough question. Okay, so as long as there are no ASBs or GSBs inside, I think I simply can't take them. I just can enter there. Apart from that, I guess because my army is sitting in Palmyra, the moment the Macedonian units are removed from this province here, Abarnahara, I control the province because I'm the only person who has units in there. So I guess I automatically then control also Damascus. But just to I also want to capture the treasure here, so I move in again. I have to empty the treasure because the satrap ran away with all the money. But now I actually do control Damascus. I'm not quite sure. I think if I remove this one, then Sardis would still be controlled by the Macedonians because they control the province of Lydia. Okay, so that was my action. Now what can Alexander do? We'll see. He's definitely in trouble. Okay, we draw another Macedonian face here. Can play a card. He doesn't have one. He could play the assassin. Now here's the interesting point. Alexander can play an assassin and the Bagoas card together. It may be used against Darius only if the Macedonian plays it, the Bagoas card with it. The card may be used against any leader including the others. Roll a die, 1 to 3 dead, 4 to 6 survives. So yeah, I'm going to play that card. I wonder if I have something to prevent that from happening. But that is not the case. So now it's getting interesting. It is possible that Darius will die on a 1 to 3. That is the case. And it is not. Darius survives that attempt. So he was lucky there. And it's Alexander again. He can now move. Okay, I think at that point the only chance that Alexander actually has is simply to hope that he will have a lucky roll so that it is a mutiny, but he can't survive the mutiny. So I'm going to not try to run back. I have to found Alexandria, and I'm going to do that. So I'm going to move in here. I mean, if this guy announces I probably cannot prevent him from announcing a administration phase. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to go there and try to recapture the city. Okay, I ended up at Alexandria, and I can only found Alexandria during an administration phase. So basically I want it anyway. Okay. Yep. Let's see who's the next player. And it's the Persians. Okay. Well, the Persians have another great card in their hand. They can play the same card again. And this time we're going to actually remove the one in Sardis. The idea behind that is I get an oligarchic counter-revolution. That would allow me to place a garrison in any unoccupied space in Mysia, Lydia and Caria. So I could then place a garrison in Sardis, which means I would also control that city. And if I then can do this mutiny roll, I have a very good chance of winning that game. But I cannot play more than one card during a turn. So I decide to hire a few troops for the moment. Okay, 9 troops. And I'm kind of place them somehow in here, I guess. I gotta be careful. I cannot bring too many troops in my army number 2 or 3 because I only have 20 troops in my first army. So I placed 19 in each of them, or actually 4 in each of them, and then another one here. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I want to do. I could raise also another general at that point, and I'm going to play him with my first army. Farnad says, yeah, I'm going to bring him into play here. Okay, and now it's going to be interesting if the next player is, wait a minute here. If the next chit is the Persians again, they will probably win the game. If it's Alexander, well, we'll see. It's Alexander. Okay, so that was lucky for him because he can now move back in here 1, 2, 3, 4 before the Persians. Can they? Yeah, they can. They can move 4 spaces. They can enter Sardis before the Persians can play their oligarchic revolution that might save them. Okay. So they have to move with this guy now. 1. Well, they also might consider calling that an administrative action or an administrative phase. The reason is simple. Actually, it doesn't make a difference if I control this city or not. So the sooner I found Alexandria, the earlier I can move back and do something with Alexander. I mean, it doesn't make a big difference. So I'm going to call it an administrative phase, and we can first try to replenish our treasuries. And by the way, the one here should be depleted because of this raising of the troops. And I can try to replenish that one. It's a 1, 2, 3. Yep. So this one is full. And I can also try to replenish this one by using 1, 2 provinces. Oh, that didn't work out. Okay, then they can reduce garrisons, and that is something that the Macedonians will do because they probably will need garrisons if they want to continue their advance to the east, yeah, okay. Okay. I guess that's fine for now. What about the Persian player? Well, he still has a ton of garrison markers here. So for him it's not necessary. And then Alexander can build Alexandria simply by taking that marker here. There are actually 4 Alexandrias. I find that a little odd. You can build an Alexandria on a transit space. I wonder how that should work out, because you cannot finish your movement in a transit space. Oh, wait a minute. Well, first I'm going to place it now here, that's for sure. That's what I want to do. And well, I guess it's not that important how it works, because there are 3 other Alexandrias I could found, but I don't really see the positive effect of them, honestly. Okay. And now we have to do the Macedonian warrior in this check. If it's a 1 or 2, they're still fine. If not, they have a lot of trouble. Okay. So that means now we roll, maybe for the end of the game. The Persians control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cities. So that means they have to roll below that. If they manage to do that, they win. And they did. It's exactly a 4. That's it. That's it. The game is over. The troops of Alexander just fall apart, and yeah, that's the end of the game. Now, if they would have rolled a 5, then the war weariness level would have been reduced by 5. Alexander's army would have lost 5 units, but then there would be quite a chance that he could go on for a few more turns. So that was a critical moment here. If he wouldn't have rolled a 4 here, but a 5 or 6, it would have been not impossible that we would have not seen a mutiny in the future anymore. But then again, Alexander had a lot of problems with his injury level. Okay, maybe a few words about the game. It was a real surprise. I absolutely enjoyed it. I didn't expect that after I played the first few turns off camera, just to get a little feel for the game. I felt pretty bored, and I didn't expect a lot of fun from playing that. That comes from this asymmetrical point that at the beginning it's hard to see anything that could stop Alexander, right? I mean, he is so extremely powerful and so superior with his forces. The elite level of 5, the battle rating of 4, there is nearly nothing that the Persians can do against him. He will simply win if they manage to build a massive force. And we've seen that once, right, with over 50 units. And Alexander doesn't have that many units. then they might have a chance. But even in that way, I think in this game we've only seen a single time, and that was in a battle with Craterus against Darius, where Darius had also much more people. We've only seen a single time that the Macedonians have lost a battle. Alexander never has lost a single battle. There were 2 draws and 1 defeat, and that's it. So there is this massive superiority, and at the beginning of the game you got that feeling, hey, you know, there is nothing I can do. There simply isn't. And it doesn't take too long until Alexander takes all Asia Minor. You can try to hold Sardis and maybe these fortresses here a little bit. But even with this high battle rating of Alexander, it is much likely that they will simply surrender, and that's it. But then, once Alexander gets here in this area, it becomes much more complicated for him, especially if the Persians control roads. But even if not, because they start with a fleet here in Salamis, it is at least kind of unlikely that Alexander can do a naval supply line from this region to Pallas. So he's got to be really careful here that he's not cut off. And that's exactly what we've seen. There was this permanent threat that he will get cut off from his supply. And yeah, that's a serious problem. Then his forces are weakened. He cannot do any sieges. And well, yeah, that he cannot hire troops. So things become much more interesting. There are a lot of interesting decisions to make. You could think about, hey, do I want to attack Alexander and try to bring this war readiness level up and his injury level, of course? Do I want to try to cut off his supply? Do I even consider attacking Macedonia, which is kind of problematic because you're out of supply yourself, right? You would need to take Sardis back, and that is probably not the best option. But it's not impossible, and the Macedonian player has to take care of this threat at least a little bit. There are other interesting points. For example, when the Persians hire units, the treasures start to become depleted. We've seen that. They're having less and less money, and then if you play something like revolts or droughts or something, that can also hinder the Persians from using their nearly limitless forces. So this is another interesting option that the Macedonians can use on their side. So overall, the game is much more interesting than I thought at first. And I think it's also much more balanced. I'm not even sure if it is so easy for Alexander to win, or if maybe the Persians are a little in advantage here. I simply don't know that. I think if you play that in a clever way, it's going to be very, very hard for the Persians, for the Macedonians to win. On the other hand, we must consider that we were very lucky, that the Persians were very lucky when it comes to the injury checks. We've seen, I don't know, I think maybe 4 times that Alexander took 2 hits, and that was definitely a very unlucky roll from the Macedonian player here. The rules are a little vague in some point, especially when it comes to line of communications. It's not absolutely clear, for example, if there is a limit to the length of the line of communication if you want to besiege a city. The rules kind of imply that this is the case, but then, and I've shown that early on in the video, the options for Alexander would be extremely limited. He could only besiege that city here, Ekbatana, because there you can trace a line of communication here, and from there you could trace a line of communication to Pellas. Otherwise, it's simply not possible. You cannot trace line of communications to either Sardis nor Pellas. And therefore, I didn't like that. I said, okay, for these besieging affairs, simply tracing a clear path is good enough, no matter how long it is. Another problem are the naval rules. The movement allowance is not absolutely clear. It says no units can move more than 4 spaces, but it kind of says that in a paragraph which is mainly about the transport ships and not so much about the fleet themselves. Well, okay, you could argue, well, no units includes the fleets, and I played it that way. We've seen that the naval aspect is probably not that important, except when it comes to these line of communication things. But usually the Macedonian navy is simply too weak to fight the Persians. On the other hand, the Persians cannot fight the Macedonians up here because the range is not far enough. So it's just this kind of blocking of line of communications here in roads, and maybe down here, for example, the fleet of Tyre, they could, and we've seen that in the game, they could block a few sea paths here. That's basically all I can see, at least at that point. The cards are fun. Some can be very strong. Others are not too interesting, but anyway, I think they're fine. And yeah, that's basically all I can say. It's a fairly straightforward game, not too heavy, not too simple. If you are used to the point-to-point movement and maybe some other Berg games, it is actually fairly simple. But anyway, it's an enjoyable, pretty fast game, and I guess I can recommend it. Maybe in multiplayer it could be a problem for the Persian player to always lose the battles. That could be frustrating. But okay, I mean, apart from that, it was an enjoyable experience here. Okay, hope to see you on the next video or on lonesomegamer.com. Bye.